Hi, my name is Jack Hargreaves, and I'm doing a reading of Winter Pasture by Juan for Translators Aloud. There's not much context needed because I'm going to read from the beginning of the book. This is the cover. It's beautiful. They did a wonderful job. Cool. In the beginning, from the moment I released my second book, my mother started bragging to the whole village that I was an author. But our neighbours only ever saw me, day after day, muck-faced and mussy-haired, chasing after ducks from one end of the village to the other. They all expressed their incredulity. Even as my mother kept going on and on about it, when they turned to look, they'd catch sight of me, scurrying along a ditch as fast as my slippers could carry me, hollering and brandishing a stick. Not at all as advertised. Quite undignified, really. Eventually, some of them came around to believing her. 18 miles from the lower reaches of the Ulungur River, the government was establishing a new herder village named Humujila. One of the villagers approached my mother to ask me to become the assistant village head, with a salary of 200 yuan per month. To emphasize that it was a good deal, they said the village head himself only earned 400 yuan. Deeply offended, my mother proudly declared, "My daughter would never agree to that." The visitor looked perplexed and asked, "Didn't you say she's a writer?" In short, I'm something of an enigma in Akahara village, where I live with my mother. I am suspicious for 4 main reasons. 1. I'm unmarried. 2. I don't have a job. 3. I don't visit our neighbours much. And 4. I'm not what they would consider proper. But this winter, I decided to embark on an adventure truly worthy of an author. I would follow the migrating herds deep into the desert south of the Ulungur, while observing and noting every last detail of nomadic life in the dark and silent winter. My mother didn't waste a minute before spreading the news to anyone who would listen, to further emphasize how extraordinary I was. But how were we even to begin to explain my work to the herders? This was the best she could come up with. She will write, take all your comings and goings, your work and stuff, and write it all down. The herders let out a collective ooh of understanding before lowering their heads to mutter, "What's there to write about?" In any case, word of a hand girl bound for the winter pasture quickly reached the herding teams across Kuutu Township. My mother began to select a family that would agree to take me along. At first, my ambitions were grand. I wanted to spend the winter in a destination that was at least 250 miles away, which would mean over a dozen days by horseback, so that I could get a taste of the hardest, most unforgiving aspects of nomadic life. But all the families who were planning to journey more than 10 days refused to take me along for fear that I'd be nothing but trouble. More importantly, as the day of the Great Migration approached, my ambition dwindled. Think about it. To sleep on the frozen ground only to wake a mere 4 hours later for 2 whole weeks. Before daybreak every day, I would have to grope my way through the darkness to start the journey ahead. Herding sheep, keeping up with the horses, keeping the camels in check, and grooming calves. For my petite 88-pound frame, 2 weeks would have been pushing it. So the trip was truncated to a week's journey, and finally, the week before we were supposed to leave, I cut the trip down to 3 days. Among the herder families that passed through Akahara village, those who intended to travel only for 3 or 4 days belonged to Kuutu's herder team number 3. Mama Jacobai and her family were no exception. I had spent a summer with them, and ideally I would join them again for the winter. But after a few months, a rumour circulated among the herders that I was Jacobai's son Simagul's hand girlfriend, which made me angry, and Simagul's wife Shalat even angrier. For a while, whenever she saw me, her face stretched so long it nearly hit the ground. Another important reason why I couldn't stay with Mama Jacobai was because no one in her family spoke Mandarin. Communication between us was difficult and led to misunderstandings. Herding families that did speak a little Mandarin were mainly young married couples, to whom my presence would have been a nuisance. Newlyweds are invariably deeply in love. If at night they were to express that love, then, well, how would I get any sleep? Thank you.